Hey guys, Andrea here from Dolphin Water Slides, and today I'm going to walk you through how to remove oxidation from your fiberglass water slide. What is oxidation and how do you know if you have it? If you're watching this video, odds are you have oxidation. It is what happens to fiberglass when it's been exposed to the elements, just like a water slide would be, similar to rust to metal. If your slide has that chalky, dull, cloudy look, no matter how much wax you use, it doesn't seem to do anything, that's oxidation. That's got to come off. Now, there are a lot of products out there that claim to remove oxidation. Maybe some of them do. It's been my experience most of them are just a temporary fix, and you just have to keep applying the product. So I'm going to show you how to wet sand that oxidation away. We are essentially removing the outermost layer of gel coat. So we want to be careful. We don't want to remove any more of that than what we have to remove. The slide that I worked on for this video was extremely heavily oxidized. It's well over 10 years old. It had a very rough, scratchy, almost like an emery board texture, not something that you want to slide down. So I had to start with a much coarser grit sandpaper than hopefully you will. Usually, if you're doing this by hand, wet sanding by hand, you'll probably want to start with like a 500 grit sandpaper. If you're using an actual sander, maybe start with a 600 or an 800 grit sandpaper. You can mix up some Dawn dish soap with some water in a spray bottle. That way you can keep the fiberglass surface wet while you sand. You can also mix that up in a bucket and just dip your sandpaper into it. After you have sanded the first go around with either 500 grit or 600 or 800 grit, then you'll move up to the next grit. So in my case, that would have been an 800 grit. If you start with an 800, move up to a 1500. Wet sand the whole slide, wipe it down, go to the next grit, which would be 2000 grit sandpaper. Wet sand the whole slide with 2000 grit sandpaper, wipe it down. Is not going to feel slick and shiny yet, so don't expect that. Then you're going to get a buffer, and you're going to use some buffing compound, something with some grit to it. McGuire's has a good buffing compound. It's called Mirror Glaze. That's what you're going to use to get rid of all those sand marks that you just put in your slide with your sanding. So you want to buff over the slide with your buffing compound. Then you're going to want to use some kind of fiberglass sealant to seal in all of that hard work that you just did, so that it doesn't oxidize again so soon. So ideally you would want to use some kind of beeswax for this. I could not find a beeswax of any kind here where I live, so I just grabbed another product that claimed to be a fiberglass sealant. We'll see. You'll definitely want to pick something that has a UV protectant to protect your slide from the sun. So now you've wet sanded your slide, you've buffed it with a buffing compound, and you've sealed it with a sealant. The very last step is to go over it with some Carnuba Wax. That's what's going to make your slide slick and shiny. Now, it will not make your slide slick and shiny unless you have done all of those previous steps. It'll just soak into the fiberglass and it just won't do anything. So, for the Carnuba Wax, I would just use like the little microfiber pads and work in a 2 foot by 2 foot space on your slide, applying the wax with the pad and then wiping it off and polishing it with a clean microfiber towel. I will put the products that I used in the description below, and I will try to keep this short. One more tip: if you have a fiberglass water slide and you have a saltwater pool, if you're going to have your slide turned off for any amount of time where there's not water running down it, just rinse that slide off with some non-salt water. That's going to go a long way. It's going to keep that salt residue from just baking in the sun on your slide surface. And please, please, please wax your slide. I would recommend at least twice a year. When you open your slide for the swim season and when you close it, give it a really good waxing. And then between waxes, I would probably use some kind of spray wax just because it's easy to apply. There is a really good spray wax called CSI Marine Wax. It's very easy to use. It has excellent reviews. I would use that just because it's easy to apply, so you're more likely to use it frequently. But if you have any questions, let me know below, and I will do my best to help you out. And thanks.